Hello dear chess lovers, are you ready for some calculation training? Today we are talking about the move order, folks. We will do some hardcore calculation training, so get ready. Set your physical boards, make sure you stop the video and give your best. This will be very rewarding for you. I will support you along the way. It's white to play. Can you please find the finishing blow for white? White has sacrificed so much material to come to this position, so you have to find something directly. Please take a stock and then tell me the answer. You're a great player, folks, if you found the move, a forcing sequence, rook h8 check, followed by g6 mate. Congratulations if you saw crystal clearly this mating picture and this forcing move calculation. Now, what if you change the move order and play the move g6? Would it also work for white or not? It also looks like a beautiful move, by the way, right? Almost like showing off. Instead of going for direct mate in 2, I will show off that I will mate you on the next turn. Now, I want you to visualize black's defensive resource against g6. You're training to actively search for the opponent's best move against your move. And you're a great player if you understood that after the blunder g6, black can save themselves with king f8 followed by queen g8, right? Board vision, defensive resources. Of course, black is up so much material, they will be willing to sacrifice their queen and save this position. Black is winning in this position. After takes, they'll be up a rook in the end. So what is the lesson? Obviously, we should look at the forcing moves first when we are calculating. Checks are the most forcing moves, and if you can force a checkmate as a series of 2 checks in a row, then obviously those things should be calculated first, because if you find the mate in 2, you don't need to bother with other move orders like g6, correct? By the way, g6 threatens mate in 1, and creating mate in 1 threats are the second most forcing moves in chess. Think about that. Checks are the most forcing moves, and if you can generate mate in 1 threat, that's also extremely forcing because they have to react to it, right? Checkmate ends the game. Now black has to react to your move. So in terms of calculation method, yes, we should also give priority to creating mate in 1 threats. But compared to forcing move calculation and mate in 2, right, this is still not sufficient, because then you have to actively search for the opponent's best resources. And congratulations if you found the entire idea of king f8 and queen g8 return. Now folks, this is a very interesting position. White to play. What is the best move for white? Okay, please take a stock. Get a maybe piece of paper, write down your solutions, get a physical board and give your best to this position, please. White has sacrificed a knight to come to this position. We are down material, but the black king is not so safe. The queen has invaded the king side. But we require great calculation skills to finish this game off. Please, what should white play here, folks? Now, assuming you gave your best to this position, I will first show you the mistake. If you follow the forcing move algorithm, then you should of course start with the move queen h8 check, right? That's the most forcing move. But after king e7, our queen is under fire, and you might even seen knight d5 follow up, check by the way, very forcing move. But after king d6, their king is safe. We can't mate them on the next move, and our queen is hanging, right? Our knight is hanging. And if you exchange the queens, then obviously it only helps black, right? Black in this position has 2 minor pieces for the rook, and black is fine. Black is fine. Okay? So going back to this position, folks, queen h8 check was incorrect. So what should we do then once we calculate those forcing sequences? Should we give up on our ideas? Because the main idea, I assume, was this, right? You want to force the king to e7 and then create this fork with the knight. You see, we are discovering one tactical resource as a result of going through this series of checks. But just because one idea doesn't work, you should not give up on your ideas. You should just try to tweak the move order, and maybe that will give you a better solution. Now, you're a great player, folks, if you saw the move knight d5. That's a beautiful multi-purpose move, not only controlling the escape square for the king, but also hitting the queen on c7. Can black capture this knight? Very short calculation, please. Well, you tell me. Then queen h8 is made, because the final function of that knight sacrifice was to open up the e file, right? Look at our rook, and now it's rook who is cutting off the king and taking away this escape square. Queen h8 is made. Just look at the crispiness of this calculation. Only 3-ply calculation, extremely short. But the main idea was already present from this position. Somehow you want to combine queen h8 check and knight d5 check. But contrary to the first example, in this case, our forcing moves, checks, did not give us the right solution, right? Our very first move was not a check. This was a threat, and a devastating threat. As I told you before, this also creates a mate in one threat, and mate in one threats are the second most forcing moves in chess, right? In terms of thought process, this is also an extremely forcing move that must be calculated for white. Many beginners in this position also goes d5. This will be wishful thinking, because you're only wishing and hoping that they will take on d5, and if you are playing checkers, then yes, we are mating on the next turn. The problem of d5 is, first of all, right, it's less forcing than knight d5, because right now there is no mate in one threat. The king can escape to e7, right? And after, well, black has so many moves, maybe even queen f4 comes to mind, right? Well, where's the mating attack? If you take that knight, then black is very happy to sacrifice the piece back and get a good position. There is no mate, the king is safe, right? But what else is there in this position after d5? Maybe even bishop e8 in this position comes to mind, right? Maybe they can even save the bishop that way. Because if you then go on and take the knight, then the bishop will return back to c6, and black is completely fine in this position. The king is very safe, and you could not achieve your goal, right? This position is so beautiful because people have 3 clear candidates: queen h8 check, knight d5, and d5, and it all comes down to, right, seeing the opponent's forcing moves and good resources, but also you want to finish off your task as forcing as possible. d5 gives so many options to the opponent, including sacrificing the piece back. That's just murky to calculate. So before we do it, since you saw the contours of this idea as well, just try to tweak the move order, and then you can come up with such beautiful solutions like knight d5. Black resigns. Folks, let's apply the same idea to this position. It's white to play. I'm showing the beautiful part of move orders in different settings. We will look at mating attacks. We will look at trapping the opponent's pieces. We'll even look at some pawn endgame patterns. White to play. I want you to first of all orient yourself to this position. The goal setting process, folks. Give yourself maybe 1 to 2 minutes to understand what's going on in this position, right? Almost like a real game. I want you to set your goal properly. I won't tell you whether there's a mating attack or you will win a piece or you will have something else. You need to understand yourself, just like you must do in a real game. Okay, folks? Assuming that you stop the video and think for yourself first, let's discuss what's going on in this position, folks. Equal material, white definitely has more space. This knight on h7 is bad. Well, this bishop on e6 can be attacked by moves like f5. Even this knight on c5, right, doesn't look like a piece that has so many squares. If you look at the knight especially, it only has this d7 retreat square. This means this knight is a potentially trappable piece. Now we see some contours of some ideas like b4. Already from this position you should see that b4 leaves white only a single square. And this should trigger something in your mind, right? You should be excited. Maybe there's a way for us to trap that knight. So then comes the question. What if I make black occupy that d7 square with some other piece, and that will take away this retreat square from the knight? And then you find the solution. f5, beautiful. You're a great player if you solve the entire sequence. f5, bishop d7, only move, b4, and that knight is trapped. You see it, right? The knight has no squares, will be captured on the next turn. So you see, reverse engineering totally. First, you must spot this knight as a trappable piece, and you use 3-ply calculation to reach your goals. In this position after f5, c, the bishop has no other square but on d7, right? Crystal clear calculation, basically. It's all about this terrible knight, and even, I would say, the bishop, right? Because even here, after f5, you should see the bishop has only a single escape square. Both of those pieces are fighting for d7 as the only escape, and this gives white to execute this idea, trapping the knight. Now, what if you tweak the move order, right? Because now you understood both the knight and the bishop are restricted in this position. So someone can tell me, hey, then I can also start with this move first, follow it up with the move f5. And here comes my question. Does it really work for white? Tweaking the move order, does it work for white or not? Please stop the video if you haven't done it yet and visualize this sequence. b4, knight d7, f5. And you're a great player if you understood that this doesn't work, because after f5, black has the move bishop c4, right? Black bishop is escaping. By going b4, folks, you just gave the c4 square to the bishop. It's a great, short calculation sequence. The line is actually not deep. It's actually doable for many players, even amateurs, to visualize the resulting position. But you see how important it is for thought process to see the opponent's resources. If you're only focusing on your own plans, then you can also easily miss that bishop c4 is now becoming available, right? It's hard because it really looks like it doesn't change anything. I mean, the bishop will be trapped after f5. But you see, pawn moves are very committal. Every pawn move weakens something. This pawn was controlling c4. After b4, no longer. And this should be seen by white. It's white's responsibility to see the drawback of their own move b4, right? And this is why this puzzle was a little bit challenging, maybe, for many players. f5, bishop c4. In fact, black is better, suddenly, slightly better, because, I mean, the bishop became an excellent piece. They will put pressure on the c-file, and the knight also survives. Well, things have turned, right, for white. A great puzzle from a student game, folks. Black to play. Please stop the video. That's a great calculation exercise, right? I want you to, again, maybe set a physical board, give your best to this position. What is going on? Are you seeing a good resource for black in this position? All right? Let's do it together, folks. What I am seeing in this position immediately are a couple of things. Obviously, rook d1 check and maybe potential back rank problems is there. I'm also seeing potentially the move e4. Again, I'm not saying this bishop is sort of running short of squares, no? Like e4 is also definitely a candidate to be discussed. Maybe we can even combine these two ideas, right? What if I somehow try to combine e4 and rook d1 check? I'm smelling something. Maybe I can have some good resource for black in those lines. So you see, these things should be seen first before you dive in to deep calculations. Because once you generate those two candidates, you know you have choices on the very first move. If one candidate doesn't work properly, then maybe you can tweak the move order and start with the other move first. Folks, one last thing that we should see in this position is, yes, we are facing a potential back rank problem, but it's very good that our bishop is covering the c8 square against rook c8 checks, right? That's a great also tactical vision to be able to quickly see these things and maybe do not worry too much about the back rank. Now, you're a great player, folks, if you calculated the entire sequence this time, not only the first move. Rook d1 check, king g2 is forced. What is your next move? Yes, folks, now e4 is much more powerful because e4 hits the bishop and you're also removing the escape squares from the bishop. The bishop has no squares on its diagonal, and very importantly, e takes f3 will come with check in that next move, right? This is the correct way. Of course, you should not stop here. What if white takes our knight on f6? They want to remove the guard of the pawn on e4. But yes, now we understand, right? Our move order was great. ef3 comes with a check on the king. They have to react. And of course, you recapture the bishop. It's very important that no back rank potential is there. And black has an extra piece. And black wins that position. But after e4, let's continue, folks. Let's continue. What if white takes on e4? This is also easy to understand. We can safely recapture with the knight. Why? Because our bishop is covering against this check, right? Again, go back to my first point that the back rank was potentially a problem for us, but our bishop is nicely covering c8, thus black has an extra piece with a winning position. Now, again, going back to this position, rook d1 check, king g2, e4, and black is winning. I hope that's crystal clear right now for you folks. But someone can tell me, hey, what if I change the move order, right? What if I change the move order and start with the move e4? It looks like it doesn't change anything. And here comes my question to you. Does e4 change something in its position? And it's up to you to find the defect of the move e4 by actively searching for the best move for the opponent. That's exactly what we are training in this video. You're actively searching for the best reply for the opponent. And you're a great player, folks, if you understood. The problem with e4 for black is not bishop takes f6, because then we can go back to the first idea that we saw, right? This line, in fact, doesn't change anything. Black is still winning. But after e4, what is the problem, folks? The problem is white can now retreat back to g2 with the bishop. It looks unplayable at first sight, because what if I check you? And then what if I play bishop h3? It looks like it's even nicer for black. I'll just meet you on the next turn until you come to this position, until you see the white's response of rook c1. And they're spoiling our mating attack, right? Rook c1 attacks the rook. Now those rooks must be traded off. Otherwise, we lose the bishop on h3. And this only leaves black with a slightly better endgame, right? Equal material, knight is better than the bishop, better pawn structure, but we lost the chance to win the game by winning a piece. Can you see the beauty of this, folks? Beautiful calculation training, right? Beautiful calculation training to understand the difference between rook d1 check or e4 in this position. Huge difference, and it's totally to do with the opponent's resources. You should be able to visualize the defense rook c1 against this move, because many players would come to this position in their visualization and they would say, hey, look at my bishop. I am both stopping rook c8 mates, but also I'm threatening a mate in one. Unplayable for white. I will go for this, right? It takes a great player to not stop here, but actively search for a potential defense for their opponents. Now we become like scientists, right? Like a falsification mindset. What if it doesn't work for us? And you're searching, you're giving your best to find the best move for white. That's exactly the reason rook d1 check is great, because we are forcing king g2. You don't allow this defensive idea to white, right? You then go e4 and you're winning this position. Once again, we see that forcing move first was winning for black, but it could be also totally the other way around in this case, right? But also in terms of thought process, yes, we should give more weight to this check first, simply because it's more forcing, let's say, than the other one, right? But still, it at first sight just looks like you help the white king to escape. Now you can't just, mate them on the first rank, and yet this position is still great for us because of this move comes with check on the king. This will be your homework position, folks. Black to play. This was one of my practice games against a student of mine. I was playing with the black pieces. It looks like a completely lost position for black. Why? Because we are literally playing without the king. The king is completely buried by the white pawns, and if you give time to white, they will slowly improve their knight, and they will, let's say, support their pass pawn and win the game easily. So from this position, you should already spot something, that black is in trouble. Black needs a beautiful resource to be able to save this position. And I want you to, again, go deeper in this position, give your best, and find that only resource that defends this position and saves the draw. And finally, is a little prompt for those upcoming players. The defensive idea for black involves stalemate defense. You have to set up a position where it's your turn to move, but you have no legal moves left to play. Okay? So this should orient you to the main ideas for this defense, but move order is everything. Which move you start with first and why? Please write to me on YouTube with the why especially. All right? Give me a line with a clear conclusion and also tell me why the other line doesn't work for black. This will be a great consolation exercise for what we learned today. I showed you different points of view from the middle game, from the end game, also in the opening. This move order is a very, very important tool in our disposal. What I sort of understood from this video, folks, is that obviously you generally have an idea about the position first, right? You look at those tactical resources. You should spot something in the position, right? For example, trapping the knight or the bishop position. That was our goal. We orient yourself to the most important element in the position, but then we don't limit ourselves. We don't be the first choice. We just try to implement our ideas in a different setting. If one line offers great resistance, then you can also just ask yourself, what if I tweak the move order, right? You generally talk about, of course, a specific sequence, right? Like, should we go rook d1 first, followed by e4, or in the knight trap position, should we start with b4 followed by f5, right? You generally have like two different ideas that you're juggling with, right? And then in that moment, move order becomes a crucial factor. If one line doesn't work, just tweak the move order and see if it offers less resistance for you. Obviously, we should look at the most forcing moves first when we calculate, check those checks first, and then look at those mate in one threats, because they are the second most forcing moves, as we saw in the first position here, folks. But it's also so crucial, right, to actively search for the opponent's best moves. And many people go wrong there. You know, wishful thinking kicks in, confirmation bias kicks in. People don't search for the best moves for their opponents when they are calculating. So that's what we also trained in this episode, right? In all these tricky lines, only one solution was there, and the other solution, the changing the move order, didn't work for us for one particular detail, and so on. I hope this was useful for you folks in terms of calculation training, and I will give you more of such positions and ideas. We discussed thought processes. Please give me feedback on YouTube, and please give me a like and subscribe as well if you like this video. I'm doing this to help you improve your chess, and I think calculation is a fundamental pillar for amateurs, adult improvers, beginners at all levels. If you improve your calculation skills, analytical abilities, this will make you a great chess player. You will benefit tremendously from such exercises. Okay, folks, I will catch you on the next episode, and bye-bye for now.